9.3. The medieval system of the world. This map was created in England in about the year 1300. It hangs in the cathedral of Hereford, which is why it's called the Hereford Mappa Mundi, or Hereford Map of the World. On the map you can see the three continents known to Europeans at the time. Because Jerusalem was to the east of Europe, east, not north, is up, so Europe is in the bottom left, Africa in the bottom right, and Asia is all the top half. Because the Bible is considered an unerring source of history, the Hereford map locates all of the lands of the Bible in physical space. Jerusalem, for instance, is at the very center of the world. The Red Sea is colored in red. The Garden of Eden is all the way at the top, surrounded by a moat, a wall, and a ring of fire. Noah's Ark is placed in Armenia in modern Turkey. Sodom, Gomorrah, Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt, and the biblical giants Gog and Magog are also depicted, as well as the mythical Labyrinth of Crete and the Pillars of Hercules. Now, here's a diagram of the universe as depicted in the Divine Comedy of Dante Alighieri, who lived from about 1265 to 1321. The Earth is at the center of the universe, and the seven celestial bodies visible with the naked eye, the Sun, the Moon, and the planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, each travel around the Earth in concentric spheres. We call this the Ptolemaic universe after the Roman-Egyptian astronomer Claudius Ptolemy, who lived from about 100 to 170 CE. Dante organizes the Earth, too, into concentric spheres. In his Inferno, the first part of the Divine Comedy, he describes a journey into hell, where he journeys downward to the center of the earth, encountering first those whose sins were excessive natural appetites such as lust and gluttony, and then those who are violent towards themselves, others, and God, and finally, the unnatural sins that destroy the bonds of trust in human society and between people and God. After encountering Satan in the very center of the world, and of the universe, he then ascends through purgatory, which has sinners working off their crimes in a sort of moralized group fitness class, and finally heaven, where each of the seven spheres, corresponding to the heavenly bodies, is a different layer of virtue. In the end, he is granted the vision of God, who is outside of space and time. These diagrams of the physical world map the medieval worldview into real space, encompassing the religious, the social, and the moral. For instance, Aristotle believed that heavier things fall down. Sin is equated with weight, so hell is beneath us. Because lightness is equated with virtue, heaven is up. The sun, moon, and planets must be made of a lighter substance to stay up in the sky. In other words, medieval ideas of both the earth and the cosmos translate the system Charlemagne set up into one comprehensive, biblically centered, and well-ordered worldview. Most people lived in rural areas and were farmers on land owned by the nobility. The work they did fed everyone else. From their excess production, the church was able to build cathedrals, the nobility were able to wage war, and both groups were able to live at a higher standard of living than the common people. The chief concerns of the vast majority of people, however, were working, with men doing men's work and women doing women's work, getting along with their neighbors, getting married, having children, and leaving property to the next generation. The ways of doing this were guided by the church and its teachings. At least in theory, everyone knew their place in this world. It is at the margins, outside of Christendom, where the system breaks down and where the monsters live. In the writings of philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre, who lived from 1905 to 1980, we find the idea of the other, the people we define in opposition to our own social group, which is, after all, an extension of ourselves. Others are not like us, and thus intrinsically seen as less than ourselves. All societies have their idea of the other, and, just as they show the lands of the Bible in physical space, medieval maps have made this anxiety manifest as monsters. One did not need to travel to distant lands to find monstrous others. People who were different were also near at hand. Jews, who lived throughout medieval Europe, did not believe in Christianity, were excluded from most professions, and were seen as monstrous in their own right. In this cartoon from 1233, a devil is pointing to a Jewish moneylender's nose. It was also believed that Jews had a foul smell and that Jewish men menstruated during Easter as punishment for participating in Jesus' execution by the Romans. In this way, Jewish people became othered and seen as a separate race, marked as physically different through inheritable characteristics. Even Christian people such as the Irish or the Byzantines might also be marked as others, and thus conquest of them was justified, because they did not follow the proper ordering of economy, society, and church. Similarly, those within Christian society who did not believe properly, heretics, were also seen as going against the right order of the world, so much so that homosexuality, which medieval people regarded as a sin against nature, which, since it couldn't result in pregnancy, was almost always considered to be associated with heresy. They too were othered. And of course Muslims, and unconverted pagan peoples in Eastern Europe, were outside Christianity altogether, and so holy war against them was justified. Because these religious wars, many of which were what we call the Crusades, shaded so smoothly into the conquest of the New World, we will look at them in the Age of Exploration and Conquest.